isolating sound, and moving and modifying pre-built items.
You want to sound isolate rooms unless you're only going to have a few people on your island. However, this can be difficult if you're using one of these pre-built islands. Since I can't modify this building by the rights that I was given, the first thing I want to do is remove it. But before I do that, I'm going to right-click on it. I'm going to take it into my inventory, but let me go to Edit first and notice the name of it. It's called the Meeting Lounge. So I'm going to click out of that. I'm going to right-click it again, and I seem to have to hold this down, and I want to take the building away. And it's telling me there's objects locked, but I'm going to say that's okay. I still don't have access to the ground, so I'm going to right-click on the floor, edit it, and see, okay, it's called Ace Wood Floor. And knowing that, X this out, I'm going to go to right-click, Ace Wood Floor. I'm going to take it. I've moved back to get some perspective on what's left after I've moved those two pieces of the building. And I can see that as long as I can draw boxes on the ground, I'll be able to do the sound isolation. Now that I have a perspective and I want to have access to the ground to be able to do the sound isolation, I'm right-clicking the ground and choosing to edit terrain. Now when I hold down the cursor, I can draw these yellow boxes around the space where I want the sound isolated. So let me put these two little side areas as one piece of sound isolation. Now let me drag the menu over. It disappeared over to the top. What I want to do now is do something about this piece of land that I've isolated. So it went over to sound. I think that was because I was here before. You can do other things to this piece of land, but I want to be sure that voice is enabled, but that I also restrict the voice to this parcel. And I think by default that is turned off. So you want to be sure that's been made possible for this particular parcel. And once that's done, I don't have to do anything more than click X because it's automatically recorded. And then I'll close this to get it out of the way. Now let's see if we can do some other sound isolation. I'll right-click onto the land, edit terrain again, move this out of the way, and I will isolate sound around several other areas. I'll now have 3 separate areas where avatars' sounds don't bleed over beyond those boxes. That can mean, though, that there'll be some sort of dead zones where people who move outside of those boxes can't hear, and so you'll have to be alerting your visitors against that. Now once you've got your sound isolated areas, you need to put back the pieces of building that you removed, and that's going to be a challenge. So look here and try to get some orienting areas. Now here's that door. Apparently the door was not part of the building. Okay, I'm clicking it. I can go into it, but that will help me orient the building. But before I put the building down, I want to put the floor down first. So I'm going to go into my inventory, and remember that I took out the floor. I'm going to click on it and say restore to last position, and then I'll pull it out, but it doesn't seem to quite go where I want it to. Okay, at first it looks good, but when I see it isn't oriented well enough for the area. So I click on the floor, I right-click on it, I go to Edit, and now I'm going to see about moving the floor. You may have to go over to Objects, and if the floor is locked, unlock it. Okay, that gives me control, and I could do it interactively through the coordinates, but I'm going to try to do this. Let me close this window by using the arrows. Now I can adjust it later, but I certainly know that the floor was under these areas here. And one thing that can be challenging though with floors, when I pull it down with the blue arrow, it can sort of disappear. Now I can't find it. So I still have the arrow active. I'm going to pull it back up, but you will find that sometimes you can have trouble with these items. The next challenge is going to get the building oriented in the right direction, because you'll see up at the top there are some things that are floating around that are not actually part of the building. And remember this door, because that'll be a helpful orientation spot. I'm going to go over to the inventory again, and since I've done this recently, I'm going to right click and ask it to restore to the last position, which I find it really doesn't do as well as I'd like. And I'm going to bring out my building. Yep, see, the building's over to the side. And right now, I'm not going to be able to move it unless I clicked into Edit and then pull this menu back. You'll see it's locked right now. If I unlock it, I now have the moving arrows back. And let's see. I'm going to try to bring it back. It's challenging with the different dimensions. And if you're artistic, this might not be such a big challenge for you. But I will continue to move this until I get it positioned properly. You do also have these multi-directional locations, arrows, and you can use those to move things around. What you want to remember in this particular building is here is where the door is, and so I'm going to have to keep on moving this until I get it down to the right level. There's some bottom areas that I don't need to move, and whoops, if I lose the editing handles, I just bring them back, and I keep on working until I get the doors to line up, and use whatever type of arrows work the best for you and your visual sense. You can see mine isn't too good. So once you finally get the building oriented where you want it to be, and this is close enough for me, and I go down, I can see where the floor comes in, and I'm going to leave it at that. I'm pressing Escape so that I can drop down, and the F button so I can drop back down, and I can walk in and see that my building's pretty much back in shape. You might have to move things a bit, but I seem to be satisfied enough. And now when people come, I should be able to have them not hear sound bleed from the conference table in the middle here over to these booths on the side, because I set them as different areas.
Make different speaking areas while benefiting from pre-built items.